Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Last Word Sports. I'm your host, Fletcher, here joined by co-host Nick DeRay. Today, we're going to be giving you our NBA power rankings. So the way we're going to do it is we're each just going to spend about, for our bottom teams, we're probably going to spend about 30 seconds a piece on them, just giving some quick thoughts and, thoughts about the potential of their future because right now, obviously, this isn't their year. And then we'll delve in with just a little bit more detail once we get into like the top 10. Um, so, Nick, why don't you go ahead and start us off with number 30?
All right, my number 30 for this list is the Pistons. I think Jeremy Grant is a great young player, averaging 25 points per game. Derrick Rose is very solid. Mason Plumlee has been stepping up as their center. But they have just been not. They just don't have enough talent to really compete in the East as a playoff team. This is a tanking season for them, and that's pretty much all I have to say for the Pistons.
Yeah, no. For my number 30, I have the Timberwolves. I thought it was pretty clear cut and dry for me. They
Mhm.
have enough offensive firepower to get stuff done with Cat and D'Angelo and even Malik Beasley as he went ahead and dropped 28 just now.
Very underrated.
So they have offensive firepower. It's their defense that is very lacking and very, very poor, and it's what's holding them back from making any sort of impact this season.
Same. I have them at my 29, so I'll just spend a little bit of time on this. Anthony Edwards has been very inconsistent. I mean, a couple of games ago against the Blazers, he dropped 26, and lately he's been shooting like 0 of 8. Today, I think he only dropped 4 points or something like that, 6 points. He's been very inconsistent, and their just defense is just lacking all around. Their defense is just not good. But that's pretty much all I have to say about them.
Yeah, definitely need defensive improvements. Anyways, my 29 is the Washington Wizards, and that's just I don't know. They have talent. They have some semblance of talent. You got Russell Westbrook, you got Bradley Beal. They're just not winning games. And if you're not winning games, you're not going to get put high on my power rankings. So that's really all I got to say about the Wizards is that they've got some talent. They've got more talent than other teams even ahead of them. They're just not putting it together.
I think I have them at my 28. I think the Wizards have a lot of talent, but their defense is just bottom tier in the league. I think their best defender is Robin Lopez, and that just speaks for itself. Dobbs Bertans is a great player. Thomas Bryant was great, but recently he got really injured and will be out for the entire season. And Denny is a pretty solid first round pick that they picked up, but he's been kind of inconsistent as well. And Rui is also solid, but I just don't think it's their year this year. They have just been very disappointing, and it'll be a struggle for them to make the playoffs.
Yeah, very unlikely at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, moving into my number 28, I have the Pistons. So same bottom three, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sort of same stuff as Nick said. They've got some good young pieces. They just, you know, their offense is bad, their defense is bad, and they're losing games because of it. I don't really have much to say on
It's
the
tanking
Pistons.
season. It's
Yeah,
fun.
it's
It
it's
happens to every
it's a
team.
tanking season. They gotta go for the number one pick if they can.
Absolutely. For my number 27, I got OKC. And OKC has been playing pretty well at the beginning of the season. But I think other than Shea and Dort, I would just say that this team is just not very good. They have a bunch of guys that are averaging like 10 points per game. I think they have 7 guys averaging above 10 points per game, which is nice. And they're sharing the ball a lot, but I just don't see them making the playoffs or even coming close in this stacked Western Conference.
Yeah, that's a pretty reasonable choice at 27. For me, this might be a little low for some people, but for me, it seems like a reasonable spot. I have the Memphis Grizzlies. I just don't believe in them. Even with Jaw, I think their ceiling is around 20th in the power rankings. But right now, unless you have Kyle Anderson and Dylan Brooks go off each in a game, it is very hard for that team to win a basketball game. They don't have much talent outside of that, and they're just I don't know. I like them. It's not like I have a personal vendetta against them. I just don't believe in them personally, and I don't see them making the playoffs or much of a future this season.
I agree, but I think when Ja and Jaren come back, they could potentially compete for a playoff spot. I don't think they'll get it though.
Yeah,
I think they'll probably be like
I
the
think
10th.
their best case scenario is too little, too late.
Yeah, I agree. For me, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. 26, I got Toronto. That's for now. That's just for
Actually,
to now. For now, in the future, they will be better. But right now, they are not a very good team, and the reason why is they just lost all their big men over the off season. Serge Ibaka and Marcus Gasol were both huge players for this entire team. And they've come pretty close in a couple of games. I think they lost by 2 times in a row, which is rough. And I think they're just having a disappointing season is all. And that Kyle Lowry's getting older. Chris Boucher has been going off though.
love my boy Slim Duck, a Slim Duck, baller right there. Anyways, for my number 26, I have the Bulls. You know, it's just, it's another situation where I don't have a lot to say about them. They're just they should probably tank this year if we're being realistic. They should probably try to tank instead of win games because they don't have enough talent to make any sort of noise if they were to go for a playoff spot. Even if they tried their absolute hardest, which they will, they probably won't get close to a playoff spot. I like Zach LaVine. I like Lauri Markkanen. Two good, pretty young players, but it's not going to amount to anything. Their defense is awful.
Mhm. Yeah, for me, this next team that I have is the Grizzlies, and we already pretty much covered as much as we need to say about them. They're a good team if they have everybody healthy, but Jaw's going to be out for another probably couple of weeks, and Jaren Jackson's probably coming in the next 2 weeks. But even then, it might be a little bit late because they're just they're a solid team at best when they're healthy.
Yeah, a shortened season with a couple of your best players out, it's gonna be hard to recover from that.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's nothing personal against them. I
Mhm.
just think it'll be hard for them to pull it off.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving into number 25, I have the Rockets post Harden trade, and I know they've got Oladipo, and he's one great basketball player, but he's not quite James Harden. And, they were already struggling with James Harden the way it was. So, I don't see him winning much in Houston. I think they've got the wrong formula. And I think the whole point of the Harden trade was to get a good player like a lot of, I almost said Oladipo, uh, Oladipo, uh, but still not enough to make one. So hopefully they get a good spot in the lottery and are able to pull something off with a good high draft pick.
Okay, for that one, I'm not gonna lie, I have him quite a bit higher. I think Oladipo is gonna be a great fit, but for my number 24, I have the Kings, and the Kings have looked better this season than I thought they would. Rashawn Holmes has been a nice fit for them at center. De'Aaron Fox has been stepping up. I think the big thing for me right now is that they're just not really winning games at the moment, and they're playing a lot of tough games lately. They recently lost to the Blazers by 6 after being up by 20 at 2 different points in the game. Um, I just can't put them higher than 24 right now, but they're still a solid young core, and they still have a bright future ahead of them with De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, I've got them a little bit higher just because I respect the effort and the fact that they pulled off a couple of good wins. But for me, my next team is the Raptors. So you had them at 26, if I'm not wrong.
Mm,
And you said that might shock some people. It doesn't shock me at all.
mm,
Yes, their losses have been close. I think I counted myself six. I think it was 5 or 6 of their losses have been by 8 points or less, with a couple by like 1 or 2.
mm.
Um, but that doesn't mean they won the game. That doesn't mean they get a cookie and a gold medal because they were close to winning the game. They have to
Right.
win the game to get the credit. So for me, this just seems like a team that's bent on choking this year. And until they start winning games and proving me otherwise, they're not going to get any higher than that on my power ranking.
100% agree. My number 23 is the Pelicans. Pelicans have been having a pretty meh start to the season. Brandon Ingram is a phenomenal young player. Zion's a great player. Steven Adams is a nice fit at center. Nickeil Alexander just today dropped 37. I think they've got a bright future. They've got one of the best young cores in the entire league. But it's not this year for them. They've got a bright future, but not right now, not today.
Yeah, I have them a little bit higher. We'll get to them when we get to them for me, but my next team is we're on 23 is the Thunder. Um, Not much to say. Like I love Dort. Dort's just fun to watch, but
He's
they
on
don't
defense.
they just they don't have much going for them. They're
Yeah.
pretty much bottom of the league in offense, just about, and their defensive ratings just like middle of the pack.
Mhm.
They're not special in any way. They don't bring much to the table, and they've had a solid start, but I just I don't see it amounting to anything, and I think they're gonna just progressively slow down as the year goes on.
Yeah, I think Shea and Picks is their future. I think they'll have in a couple of years they'll be a very very good team. Um, but for me, my number 22 is the Cavs, and I was considering putting them higher, especially with Jared Allen coming in. I think he's going to be a very nice fit with them, and I think he fits better than Drummond does actually. But I think the top priority for them is to re-sign Jared Allen, possibly trade Drummond for whatever you can get out of him. I think Sexton and Darius Garland are both very, very good backcourt players, and I think they both have very bright futures. And I really like Kevin Porter Jr., Isaac Okoro is really good. I think they've got a ton of young talent, and it'll in a couple of years they'll be a deadly team if they can stick together.
All right. So my number 22, it might be a little low for some people, but I have the Hawks. And this isn't anything about their talent. They're a super talented roster. It's just as of late, they've lost 3 out of the last 4, 2 of which to the Hornets and one to the Knicks. And
Mhm.
those just aren't very, and they weren't necessarily super close. Like the Knicks game was a 5-point loss, which is close, but then Hornets lost by 8 both times, and then they beat the Sixers, but that was like a diminished Sixers team, so I don't want to give them too much credit for that. I like the Hawks. I think at the end of the day, they will be still throwing a bid in for uh for a playoff bid. But their play so far has just been a little uninspiring to me.
I agree. For me, my number 21 is the Bulls, and Zach Levine has been going off, and I think they've found their point guard for the future. Um, but I just don't know where this team is going to be. I know Laurie Markkinen has been out for the last couple of games, but I think they could possibly contend for the playoffs this year. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think they've got a lot of good young players, but not this year for me. Not this year.
Yeah. For me, at my number 21, I have the New York Knicks. I'm sorry, Scotty, but just watching them their past couple of games, really, really terrible loss to the Hornets, like 20-point loss to the Hornets. And then they just lost to the Nets where they were out here. Let me double check. I see no, because the trade just happened today. So they had no Karis LeVert, no Jared Allen. Kyrie was already sitting out. They hadn't gotten James Harden in yet. And so their starting lineup was Bruce Brown, Joe Harris, DeAndre Jordan, Kevin Durant, Jeff Green, with almost no depth behind that. Their best bench player being like Landry Shamet. And so I just seeing losses like that against teams with very depleted rosters at like 50% strength, it's just super uninspiring. I think they had a really great start to the season considering the level of talent on their team. Um, but I think the true Knicks are starting to come out with these past couple of games.
For me, I have the Knicks at the 20 spot for me. Um, I think they have been playing well beyond their expectations for this year. They've got a couple of great young players. RJ Barrett has been quite inconsistent, but Emmanuel has been huge for that team. Emmanuel quickly is a really good shooter, and I think they got a steal of the draft in him. And they haven't even really been able to see Obi Toppin play yet. That came out wrong. Julius Randle has been an MVP candidate. Actually, he has been going absolutely nuts. It's ridiculous. It was funny because all the Knicks fans kind of hated him last year because he just turned over the ball too much. But this year, he's been playmaking. He's been shooting better. He's been rebounding. He's been actually putting effort on defense. Interesting to see how this team plays out. My next 2 or 3 teams are all going to be in contention for the East, and I think the Knicks are contenders to make the playoffs in the East.
They could be, and still the jury's still out on that. But for me, number 19, it may seem like it's a reach for some people, but I have or wait, no, I haven't done my number 20. Oops. I have the Spurs. I think they've had a start to this year that is above expectations. I was not expecting the Spurs to be good in any regard, but they've just sort of been middle of the pack team, both offensively and defensively, and it's just it's showing the magic that Pop possesses. DeMar DeRozan is good, but he's aging. He's only going to regress. And so, there's not much to say about the Spurs other than Pop is doing the best with what he's got, and they've exceeded expectations marginally.
I agree. Lonnie Walker has been very nice over the last couple of games for them too. I think they do have a couple of young, talented players, but they also have 2 aging stars that I think they kind of need to try and trade for whatever they can get at this point. DeMar, you could probably get a pretty good trade package for him, but I think it would be best for them to just try and plan for the future right now. And I don't think their future is in DeMar. And
Yeah,
Lamar.
I think looking at something like trading DeMar to a contender for what's likely gonna be a late first round pick, maybe a protected first round pick, I think that's entirely possible. So,
Yeah, I put him
you
at
know,
my 19th spot.
yeah, no. So Spurs are solid. You put them where?
19th.
Okay, so yeah, just one ahead me. Yeah. But anyways, now back to my 19, which, I said it was gonna kind of come across as sort of a reach to some people, but it's the Kings, and I'll tell you why. Now they've had a couple of bad blowout losses recently, and that's mainly due to the fact that their defense, I believe, is ranked dead last in the league. They give out points to people. But what
Mhm.
I have loved to see is their offensive production. De'Aaron Fox is only taking steps in the right direction, other than his 3-point shooting, which has taken a noticeable dip. Um,
He had a pretty great
bar
season, yeah.
barring the night he just had against the Blazers, his 3-point shooting this year has been a little uninspiring.
Mhm.
But um, I just like the Kings. They've lost some games badly in blowout fashion, but they just got a good win against the Pacers by about 5 points. They just played the Blazers really close, who I think are a better team than some people give them credit for, and
Mhm.
they're putting up 120 points every other night. So I think the Kings only have only have can only go in an upwards direction. I like them a lot.
Mhm. For me, my next 2 teams, I think they're just kind of tied together. Charlotte and Orlando, both in the East. Both have been playing very well. LaMelo and Gordon Hayward have been huge for the Hornets. Both
Yeah.
very underrated coming into the season. A lot of people saying that the Hornets should absolutely not have signed that contract, and I agree. It was a little much, and it was a weird signing, but he has been killing it with the Hornets. And Orlando, Vucevic is a beast. That dude is a legitimate all-star. One of the best centers in the entire league. Offensive monster, can score from pretty much anywhere as a big man, and he's been killing it. Uh, as soon as Jonathan Isaac comes back, I think they could be as high as like the 6th seed in the East, but he's coming back late this year. Those are my next 2 teams. You can go ahead and say your next 2.
All right. So yeah, my next 2 then, if we're going by 2 for 18 and 17. At 18, I have the Cavs, and it's I know they've sustained some injuries, but this is for post Harden trade.
Mhm.
I think the acquisition of Jared Allen is going to help them tremendously. I think he's a really good fit for the Cavs, and I think once they get Darius Garland back and they're rolling with Sexton, Garland, and Jared Allen, that's going to be a really good young trio. It's not, they could potentially make the playoffs. I think I have them just missing,
Mhm.
but and I think they're going to be really fun to watch, and a lot of people are rating them lower than where I have them.
Mhm.
As for number 17, I have the Hornets. Same ballpark as Nick over here. I like the Hornets a lot. I like LaMelo Ball. He obviously has tremendous upside to him. It's his inconsistency that that is really stunting the progress of this Charlotte team. He'll have nights like we just saw where he becomes the youngest NBA player to ever get a triple double, and then he'll have nights where he shoots really poorly, turns it over a lot, and gets less than 10 points, and that's just you know it's going to sort of stymie the growth and development of the Hornets as the year goes on. I love Gordon Hayward, really tremendous signing, great player, but it's not like he's an X factor.
Exactly. For me, my number 16, and I know this is a lot higher than you, but I have Houston Rockets. And the reason why I say that is because I think Oladipo is going to bring a little bit more of a winning culture than James Harden did. I think he's going to play as a team player. I think he's what they need as a defensive shooting guard. He's going to be huge for them. He's a great playmaker too. If he can step up, especially after coming off of such an injury, I think that the Rockets could legitimately contend for the playoffs. And I think Christian Wood is a great, great young player. John Wall has been stepping up big time. DeMarcus Cousins has been, solid, but not fantastic. And I think he's going to step up a little bit more in the next couple games.
Yeah, all your points are pretty fair and valid, but for me, my number 16, ironically, is a few steps. Where do you put the Pelicans?
I think I put the Pelicans at 25.
Yeah, you put them at 25. I have them at 16 here. And it's for a few reasons. Yes, they're on what, a 4-game losing streak right now, and I know this is current today power rankings, but you know, they've had close losses, close loss to the Pacers, 1-point loss to the Thunder, 5-point loss to the Clippers, and 8-point loss to the Hornets. It's just been a bunch of close losses. And like I said for Toronto, it doesn't mean wins, so it doesn't count. But I think they're just about to eclipse. Like, if you had me, you know, pick a team to win between the Pelicans and say the Spurs or Kings, who I have a couple spots below them, I'd pick the Pelicans almost every
I
time.
agree.
And so, I like the Pelicans a lot. I love Brandon Ingram. I love Zion, and I love what they bring to the table as a talented young team.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of talent. I just think that they need to figure some stuff out before the season continues, and that's why I have them a lot lower.
Yeah.
For me, my number 15 is Atlanta, and I know Atlanta recently has been, kind of been so. And losing Bogdan's been a big hit, but I think with Rondo, with Trey Young, with John Collins, Clint Capella, DeAndre Hunter has been killing it. I think they could be a legitimate like high seed in the East by the end of the season. I know they're on like kind of a slow path, but I think they'll get there eventually. They just got to figure some stuff out. But I think they're a very good team.
Yep, good team. For me, my number 15 spot is the Orlando Magic. Right now, they've just taken some really bad blowouts the past few games. Like right here, last game, 22-point blowout loss against the Bucks. Before that, 14-point loss to the Mavs, and then what is this? A 42-point L to the Rockets.
That's rough.
That is really, really tough. And so, yes, they still have a record good enough to be fifth in the Eastern Conference. And that sort of goes to show what Vucevic has done and what his worth is to this team. But that's what's sort of stopping them from taking that next step up to being closer to a top 10 team. I like them. I think they've got plenty of talent. Their chemistry and the way their team works is kind of weird to me, but it's so far, other than the past 3 games, been a pretty solid formula this season.
Mhm. All right, my number 14, and I know a lot of people are going to say that this is way too low, but this is right now, and I think the Nuggets are the number 14 for right now. And the reason why I say that is because Michael Porter Jr. is currently not playing. Michael Porter Jr., when he comes back, will help this team succeed a lot more. I think they'll be probably around the 10th spot or the 8th spot. But right now, I think the biggest thing I have to say is that losing Jeremy Grant was a big hit on their defense. He was such a versatile defender that they could put anywhere from the 3 to 5. And, Millsap is kind of their 4 spot without Michael Porter Jr. in. And Millsap is a 6'7" big man that relies on his athleticism to play defense. And he's getting older and his athleticism is starting to slow down. Their defense in the post has just been very mediocre. And that's why I have them that low. But I think they'll be a lot higher when Michael Porter Jr. comes back.
Yeah, I have no quarrels with that rating. I only have them one spot ahead of them, but I'll talk to them when we get to that spot. For right now, number 14 for me is the Heat. And I know there's gonna incoming Tyler Harrow fans who are just gonna be like, "What? The Heat are the best team in the world." Jimmy Buckets isn't playing. Uh, Tyler Harrow's been inconsistent. Duncan Robinson has looked good this year, but they're the ninth seed in the East. They haven't been particularly good. They just lost to the Sixers, who are only playing with like 8 players right now.
That's rough.
And it hasn't been that it just hasn't been what you'd expect from a team that just came off of a finals appearance. Granted, there are injuries that have come and affected them, but right now I have the Heat as the number 14 team.
Yeah, for me, I have them at the 13th, so I totally agree with that. I think they lost a lot of forward depth also in the offseason with Jay Crowder, Derek Jones Jr.
Yep.
Fully healthy, this team is a really good team. They've been kind of unhealthy and inconsistent over the last couple of games, but I think by the end of the season, they'll get their crap together and they'll be a little bit higher. But
Yeah,
as of now, they've not been playing up to
I
standard.
definitely project them ending as a top 10 team in the NBA, probably around the 9 or 10 mark.
Mm,
Um, but right now they're just struggling. But anyways, moving on to my number 13, same exact reasons as Nick, just pretty much verbatim. The Nuggets.
mm,
So they're not playing up to their ability. Jokic is playing at like an MVP level, but it's not translating to wins. So I wouldn't personally have him as MVP despite his numbers, just because it's not translating to wins. Michael Porter Jr., while he's got super loads of potential, but
mm,
he's just, his defense has been poor. Paul Millsap, as you said, he's an undersized big man who relied on his lateral quickness for defense. And as he's aging, that lateral quickness and toughness is deteriorating. It's not like I have any issues with the Nuggets. They're just, they're not playing up to their ability. A lot of,
mm.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree. For my number 12, I got the Warriors. And the reason I got them this high, Curry. Simple as that.
yeah,
Wiggins is a good player. And Draymond's been playing great. Kelly Oubre has been just very not so good. Not as good as you would have thought he would play, considering he averaged 17 last year. But the entire reason they're up this high is Curry. That simple as that. Curry is the best shooter of all time. He's top 2 point guard ever. Gotta put him up there. I got him at the 12th spot for me.
yeah. Okay, yeah, no, I think that's completely reasonable. I have them one spot higher. For me, number 12 is my beloved Trailblazers. And I know some people might even put them a little bit higher right now because they're on a 4-game winning streak. But it's just when you delve into it and you look at the winning streak they're on, 2 of them are against the Kings, who, like I said, I don't think they're bad, but they're not great. Their defense is terrible, and the Kings are giving up over 120 points to the Blazers each time they see them. Another win is against, they just barely won with that CJ dagger the other night against the Raptors. And while the Raptors are, you know, they've got talent. Like I've said, they're way down on my power rankings at number 24. So beating them isn't really impressive to me. Then the other one's the Timberwolves, who are dead last. So and then before that, they lost to the Bulls before they went on this
That was
streak.
rough. That was rough.
That
That
was
was
rough. So it's like I love the Blazers. I think they could end up being a top 10 team. I think they should, if everything goes according to plan, get the 4 or 5 seed in the West. Um, but yeah, no, just right now, looking at strength of schedule, they should be performing the way they are.
Mhm. Yeah, for me, my number 11 is Dallas. I think Dallas is a good team. I think Kristaps and Luca are both phenomenal players. Luca recently had an insane dub tonight. He had 4 blocks, which is weird, but he's a phenomenal player. He's a game changing player. He's going to be the face of the league in a couple of years. But right now, I got the Mavs at about there. They're a solid team, and they've been on a. I think they're also on a win streak right now, but they're a good team. They're a good team, and I got them at 11.
Yeah, I'm not certain if they're on a win streak, but I got them a little bit higher. Anyways, at my number 11, as I alluded to earlier, is Golden State, and I pretty much have one word for you: Curry. Curry, 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 Curry. Without Stephen Curry, this team would be lower than number 20. I can guarantee you that. They'd be in somewhere in that range. But with Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins is playing solid, and Draymond Green, he isn't filling up the stat sheet, but he's a good glue guy who plays good D and does the dirty work that doesn't show up on that stat sheet. They've got a solid formula. If it don't, if only it weren't for Clay getting injured, I think this team could have actually had a shot at making the championship because I really like James Wiseman. I think he's only going to improve as the year goes on. But right now, they're just barely outside the top 10.
Yeah. For me, my number 10 is the Pacers. And the reason why I say this is because the Pacers have just been killing it lately. I think Karis LeVert's actually a very good fit for them over Oladipo. And I think Oladipo is actually playing really well. He averaged like 24 and 5 with 2 steals so far this year. So he's having a little bit of a bounce back season. But I think Karis LeVert on this team, I would think it was without Kyrie and KD on the Nets, he averaged something like 31, 7, and 6. So I think he's going to have a big step up with the Pacers. And I think the Pacers will be a higher seed in the playoffs now. Again, I would like to formally apologize for putting them outside of the playoffs in our original rankings, but I think they're definitely going to be up there.
It was definitely hard to see them ending up being as good as they are right now.
Yeah.
But for me, my number 10 is the Utah Jazz. Some people would have them higher. I would like to bring it back down to earth a little bit. Their last 2 wins are against the Pistons and the Cavs, who aren't particularly great teams. And then, yeah, and then before that, it was the Bucks, which is a really good win. You always love seeing 130 points dropped against the Bucks. That's really promising. But then you look one game before that, and it's the Knicks,
Yeah.
beating them by 12. Who, like I said earlier, the Knicks aren't terrible, but if you're a team that has aspirations of being a contender, you shouldn't lose to them by double-digit points.
Yeah, for
So
me, my number 9 is the Jazz, and I pretty much just agree with everything you said. They're a good team. Donovan Mitchell has been having a little bit of a slow start, but I think when they get their crap together, they'll be a very good team. Rudy Gobert has been consistently solid. I think he had a 4-20 and 4 block night the other day, which was one of the weirdest stat lines I've ever seen. But Jazz are a good team. I got
yeah,
them at
good team. Gobert's overpaid,
yeah.
but good team. Number 9, I have the Pacers, so I guess we just flip-flop those two right there. Um, Not much to say other than just kudos to them. They've come out hot, they've come out firing, and they're going on all cylinders right now. They're definitely exceeding, I think, everybody's expectations except for maybe Pacers fans.
Mhm.
I like what they brought to the table so far. They've had good intensity on defense, and they're they're keeping you on their toes offensively. You don't know what they're going to do. They can attack you in a variety of different ways. If they're on from beyond the arc, then they're really hard to stop.
Doma and Brogdon have just been killer so
Yeah.
far this season. My number 8 is Portland, and I'm probably going to take up a little bit too much time on this one, but Dame and CJ are just nuts, man. Dame's been having a rough start to the season, but I think this game in particular that just happened is going to finally set Dame kind of on the right track. Nurks had a really big game tonight, and I think he's going to continue to play at about this level. He's had a rough start to the season, only been averaging like 10 and 7, but I think he will end up averaging somewhere around 15, 10, and 2 blocks, but I think he's a very good player. And I really like Rocco and Melo and Gary Trent if he can step up. I see this team has a really high roof. And I know the last couple of wins have been, so. But the thing that I like to see about this is that they're having huge comeback wins. And that's what makes me excited because it's been a while since I've seen this kind of team out of Portland. And they came back from behind 20 twice in the same game to beat the Kings today, which is just absolutely nuts.
Yeah, that was a really fun game to watch. I love Portland. They've been super fun to watch this year, but I just don't see them quite. They could be a contender if everything gets going all at once and everything just works beautifully. But for me, they're just right outside that mark. Anyways, at my number 8, it's the Mavs, who I've sort of viewed their current streak of 4 games, kind of like the Blazers, but slightly better. They beat the Rockets by 13, which was a good victory. They beat the Nuggets by 7, which is a good victory. The Nuggets are a solid team. They beat the Magic by 14, which are a solid team, and they just handled the Hornets by double digits. And so, they're playing really well right now. Luka Doncic, as Nick said earlier, will be the face of the league one day over Giannis. Yeah, I'm going out and saying that he will be better than Giannis and will probably end up having a better career than Giannis. I think he'll win more chips than him. I love Luka. Um, they're super talented, super fun to watch. If Luka can take some more steps on defense, I think that'll really elevate the Mavericks to the next level.
For me, my number 7 is Phoenix. And all I got to say about this is that Phoenix is just everybody's playing well together. Devin Booker has been having kind of a rough start to the season, but Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, everybody's been playing very solid. Cameron Johnson's been a big help off the bench. I think they have a big ceiling to this team as well. Their defense has been great, and once their offense starts to click, they'll be a very hard team to beat.
Yeah. For me, my number 7 is the Clippers. And obviously they're probably a top 3 team in the league in terms of raw talent, but the way they play, they play up to their competition if teams are better than them, and they give those teams a run for the money, like the Lakers. I think they always tend to play up against. But then, you know, they also play down to their competition in some regards, other than like the Blazer game or the Timberwolf game earlier in the season.
Yeah,
But
they
like,
beat the Bulls pretty badly.
yeah, but like three-point win against the Bulls isn't too impressive. 5-point win against the Pelicans isn't that big. They lost to the Warriors, and so I think they find ways to put themselves in not ideal situations, and it's a little hard for them to always come out of them on top, which is why I have them a little low.
For me, my number 6, and this is taking into account when everybody comes back from COVID, Philly. I think Philly has just been very good so far this season. Danny Green's been actually looking pretty green lately. I mean, I know 2 games ago he shot like 0 of 9, but the other night he had 28 points and had 9 threes in a game. Seth Curry, huge addition, very underrated player, one of the most efficient guards in the entire league, actually. And I think Ben Simmons and Embiid are just doing what they always have been doing. Great players, but I think they finally fit some players around them that actually work.
So
At 6.
so yeah, so Philly at 6. I have them at 6. um, yeah, I mean, sure, I'm just sort of taking into account. Look at them without COVID and all the implications that it's had on them, and they're definitely one of the best teams in the NBA. They've done a little better than what I even thought they'd do. I love Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons is a great defender, and you know, it's unfortunate for them that they weren't able to get the Harden trade done and that it went to the Nets instead. But all in all, I think the Sixers are a really good team and a title contender.
Mhm. All right, for my number 5, I got the Bucks, and the reason why I have them at number 5, and they could be higher, is because I think their bench is just very mediocre. I know Bobby Portis has been stepping up, and he's actually been playing pretty well for them, but their bench is kind of mediocre. They still haven't really gotten a guy that you can fully trust in clutch time to ISO up and hit a tough bucket. I think Drew Holiday is a very underrated player, but I don't think he's going to be enough to set them over the edge, and I got him at the 5 seed because of that.
All right. So, well, I have the Bucks at the 5 seed. um, yeah, I mean, Giannis is obviously going to go out and do Giannis things as often as he can. Chris Middleton, uh, when he's on, but he's had some consistency issues this season. Drew Holiday isn't quite as well as I would have liked, but all in all, this is a title contender, and they should be making some noise come playoff time. Hopefully, this is. A lot of people hate on Giannis. I like him. He seems like a pretty nice, genuine guy, pretty funny on social media. I'd really like to see what he would do in the finals this year.
For me, my number 4 is the Clippers. And as much as I dislike Paul George as a Blazer fan, Paul George has been killing it. I gotta give him respect for that. He's been really stepping it up this season. Kawhi's been very solid. Serge Ibaka, absolutely the right choice in that pickup as a big man this offseason. He can stretch the floor for them. He's a very nice fit along them, and he's a great defender. I still think that they need a passing point guard. But I think their team is a very solid team, and they will make some noise in the playoffs. Considering that, I think Serge Ibaka actually fits them better than Montrez ever did.
Yeah, a trade for Ricky Rubio, I think, would be really good for them.
Absolutely, I said that before in an earlier video, and I think he would be very nice with the team.
Yeah. For me, this might be a little high for some people, but if you just look at how the Phoenix Suns are playing together as a unit, it is so fun to watch. And yes, I'm saying that knowing that they just lost by 21 to the Wizards on Monday. I do not care. I do not care. Yes, Devin Booker has had a slow start to the season, but he hasn't had to have a tremendous start to the season. Chris Paul, uh, he orchestrates the offense beautifully. And DeAndre Ayton, I think his numbers are a little bit down from what they normally are. I've had him on fantasy, so his production hasn't quite been what I expected. Regardless of that, he's still really good, and I know he's going to get better and better. And the Suns, they don't have a lot of big names outside of those three, but they all work together. They have great chemistry, great teamwork, and they're super fun to watch.
All right, my number 3 team, and I think this is probably going to be the same spot that you have them, the Celtics. I think they're all very good players. They have a ton of young talent, and I think Kemba, when he comes back, is going to be a big help. Um, Peyton has been a very underrated rookie. He's been playing very well. Had that game winner the other day. And you just got Tatum and Jaylen Brown who've just been killing it this year, and that's pretty much all that needs to be said. Tatum will do it in 3 quarters and will just mess up your team and then not play the fourth. Um, they're just a very good team, and that's as best as I can say about them.
Yeah, I mean, not much else to say about them other than they're a complete roster.
Mm-hmm.
Other than having a dominant big man,
Tristan
they're
Thompson is a nice fit for them, though.
yeah, he's a nice fit for them, but it's not like he's dominant.
Yeah.
Jason and Tatum and Jaylen Brown have arguably been the best duo in the league this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think anybody with half a brain would argue that. They, night in and night out, are putting up monstrous numbers. Then you got really good defense from Marcus Smart, even though he's not always filling up the stat sheets. Kind of like Draymond in that regard. Obviously, filling it up a little bit more than Draymond, but really good D. His production doesn't always show up in the stat sheet. And then Peyton Pritchard, he's had some shooting consistency issues, but when he's on, and I really like him for the future of this team. And they're doing this all without Kemba. When
Yeah.
Kemba comes back, they could legitimately be in the conversation for best team in the league if they're firing on all cylinders. And that's, yes, over this new look Nets and over the Lakers.
Mm-hmm. All right, my number 2, definitely the Nets. I know the Nets lost a ton of depth in this trade, but it's James Harden, it's Kyrie, and it's Kevin Durant. I don't know what else to say, man. They're 3 of the best players in the entire league. You got Kyrie, who's a top 15 player. Katie and James Harden were both top 5 players. Their offense is nuts. Their defense, they lost a lot of post defense, but I think if you can outscore any team in the league, you'll pretty much win every time. They've just got so many scores and they're impossible to guard. Yeah, I don't think there's quite any team, if they can figure everything out, that will be able to beat that Nets team.
Yeah,
If you can figure out all the locker room details and all of the
yeah.
player making and all
They
that
they
stuff.
got they got two people who you could constitute as divas in there now. But yes, I have them at the number two spot as well.
Mhm.
And we talk about the missing depth they have now after that trade. Regardless of it, with all their missing depth and them missing Kyrie and them missing their new acquisition of James Harden, they still pulled off a win today against the Knicks with their only notable players being Kevin Durant, DeAndre Jordan, and Joe Harris. And DeAndre Jordan hasn't been an all-star in years. Joe Harris is just a solid role player, and then we know
Very
Kevin.
solid player, though.
Yeah,
Very solid.
and then Kevin Durant's, of course, the top five player in the league. But they were doing it with Landry Shamet and Timothy Luwawa Cabarro, I believe is how you say it, balling out off the bench, and it's showing that their lack of depth that may be perceived after this trade might not harm them just as much as people are thinking. However, this is a one game sample, so I could be talking at the wazoo here. But yeah, number two team for me is Brooklyn Nets post Harden trade. Beautiful.
I think, well, I mean, obviously our number ones are both the Lakers. Um, all I got to say is, they've got four players that are all just like really good players. I mean, you got LeBron James, you got Anthony Davis. Those are your big two, obviously. And then you've got um, Dennis Schroeder, who's like a six man of the year candidate. And you got Montrezl Harrell, who's also a six man of the year candidate and can probably average 20 on another team. I think right now they're both averaging around 14, and Montrez is getting 7 or 8 rebounds. But their defense, in the offseason, they sacrificed a little bit of defense for an insane offense. They became a much better offensive team this year through the offseason. Big pickups. I just think they'll be a dominant team. Come playoffs, they'll be the team to beat.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were the team to beat as soon as the first preseason game started. The Lakers are walking around with an especially huge target on their back, and it hasn't mattered. They've dominated. Every team is bringing the absolute best that they've got against the Los Angeles Lakers, and they're still 10-3. They've dominated. They just got like a near 30-point victory today over the Oklahoma City Thunder. LeBron James is balling out. Dennis Schroeder is looking good as a starter, and Montrezl Harrell likely will end the year as a six man of the year candidate. And while Marc Gasol has been underwhelming in some aspects, he's still been serviceable most this season, and it has definitely not been a detriment to the team.
Yeah, he's also not really a stat guy. He's just a guy that has a big impact as soon as he hits the floor.
Yeah.
But well, this has been the last word, guys. Thank you guys so much for viewing. You guys should like and subscribe. This has been the last word.